Hello, good evening, and welcome to another edition of Wealth Creation Through Industrialization. I am Hadiza Olaosebikan. Tonight's edition of the program will feature the high policy dialogue that took place recently at the Nigerian Institute for Policy and Strategic Studies, NIPSS, in Kuru, Jos, the Plateau State capital. The forum deliberated on industrial relations, labor productivity, and national development, the role of private sector. The star-studded panel featured leading personalities from banking and the organized private sectors. They are the Managing Director and Chief Executive Officer of the Bank of Industry, Mr. Rashid Adejare Olaoluwa, Alhaji Jani Ibrahim, Vice President of the Nigerian Association of Chamber of Commerce, Industry, Mines and Agriculture, NACCIMA, who is also the immediate past president of NIPSS Alumni Association, the president of the Manufacturers Association of Nigeria, MAN, who was represented by the Vice President Alhaji Madugu. Their audience were participants of the Institute's 36 senior executive course that comprised top executives from the public and private sectors, as well as military and paramilitary institutions. Here are highlights from the highly intensive and informative presentations, as well as the interactions that ensued. Happy viewing. The three highly respected resource persons set the stage by defining the component of the topic, industrial relations, labor productivity, and national development, and how they are connected. Thereafter, they dwelt on the specific role the private sector can play in national development, especially through industrialization. Alhaji Madugu, who represented the president of Manufacturers Association of Nigeria, gave an insight into the role of labor in productivity.
In an increasingly globalized world, productivity is becoming synonymous with quality, and improvement does not just involve the efficient production of products or services, but the products and services that are needed and demanded and brought by rational customers who have now made quality an important index of performance. The role of labor in productivity. With the current concept of productivity, the role of human factor as the main determinant of productivity improvement is widely appreciated, while the role of technological advancement is recognized. It needs to be emphasized, however, that its full potential of productivity improvement cannot be realized in the absence of human resource. In the new economy, this point is even more crucial with the put-loose mobility of capital associated with globalization. Technology and capital are likely to move to those economies that provide a capable workforce to produce price and quality competitive products and services. The benefit of improved productivity, however, accrued to various stakeholders in society. It is therefore useful to approach the role of labor in productivity, promoting the stakeholders framework. For us in the manufacturing sector, this is an area of high consideration, and we believe this can also impact on the economy and national development. Most of our members in the manufacturing sector of Nigeria, particularly the multinationals, have greatly adopted this new approach by raising productivity and national development through massive continuous investment in technology acquisition and product innovation. This has also been complemented with the upgrade and improvement in skills of operators, both at the low, medium, and executive level of the labor.
Alhaji Jani Ibrahim, the Vice President of the Nigerian Chamber of Commerce, Industries, Mines and Agriculture, NACCIMA, who represented the President, highlighted the factors that can enhance healthy industrial relations and high productivity by labor.
A sound labor productivity and enhanced industrial relations is the most desirable form of economic development. Hence, there is a need to encourage and accelerate the factors that affect them in the country, especially manpower and skills development. For as long as productivity is low, there cannot be a meaningful national development. Then the factors enhancing industrial relations, labor productivity, and national development. They are summarized there. Strong and stable union. A strong and stable union in each industrial enterprise is essential for good industrial relations. Both management and labor should help in the development of an atmosphere of mutual cooperation, confidence, and respect. Similarly, both the management and the unions should have faith in collective bargaining and other peaceful methods of settling disputes. Then workers' participation in management. Participation of workers in management of the industrial enterprise should be encouraged by making effective use of works committees, joint consultations, and other methods. This will improve communication between managers and workers, increase productivity, and lead to greater effectiveness. The mutual accommodation between employers, employees, the unions, etc. The sincere implementation of agreements. The management should sincerely implement settlements reached with the trade unions. The agreement between the management and the unions should be enforced both in their letter and spirit. And we saw an example in the last ASU strike. Sound personnel policies, progressive outlook. There should be progressive outlook of the management of each industrial enterprise. We should be conscious of its obligations and responsibilities to the owners of the business, the employees, the consumers, and the nation, essentially all the stakeholders.
In his presentation, the Bank of Industry's Managing Director and Chief Executive Officer, Mr. Rashid Adijare Olaoluwa, discussed the role of the private sector in national development within the context of the dialogue.
We will talk about national development, when we talk about productivity, when we talk about labor relations, we must talk about globalization and its effects. The new global, complex and often chaotic world of multinational enterprises requires a new strategic focus and new capabilities for labor relations, labor productivity, and national development. The private sector has played strong advocacy roles for the maintenance of sound macroeconomic policies in Nigeria. And we play this role through a number of forums, such as the Vision 2010, Vision 2020, Nigeria Economic Summit Group, which is still ongoing, and the organized private sector. And I'm very happy that I'm sharing this forum with important representatives from the organized private sector. At BOI, NACCIMA and MAN represent my primary constituencies. The private sector promotes the alignment between the interest of employers and the interest of employees. Now, the way they do this is through accountability. They have reward systems, they have sanction systems, so if you behave in a particularly good way, there are rewards that come with this. If you behave in a non-productive, destructive, negative manner, there are also consequences. There are performance-based incentives, there are bonuses, there are profit-sharing arrangements, and then there's a career planning system that tells you where you are today and where you can aspire to go to in the future. Now, there's an intersection between the private sector and the public sector, and that is through the PPP, Public-Private Partnership. And this is very instrumental to the development of critical infrastructure through concessions, outsourcing, and so on.
He also pointed out the residual role of government in all of this.
Government has residual roles, and I would just like to mention a few of them. First, physical and social infrastructure, consistency and continuity of government policies, sound international trade policies and agreements. We need efficient commercial courts. There are cases that have been in the court for the last 5-7 years with banks trying to recover loans that have proven very difficult because those cases are locked up in our courts. One way to address this is to have commercial courts that can have fast-track process for foreclosure of defaulting bank loans. I want to propose that we find ways of ensuring there is low-cost business registration. It's a known fact that today our informal sector is huge. We're trying to move as much of the activities that go in the informal sector to the formal sector. One of the major impediments is that there is a lot of fees that await people who want to do that in the formal sector. A lot of fees they have to pay, at CAC to register companies and so on and so forth. And to perfect an instrument today, maybe a legal mortgage and so on, it's very expensive. I know that government has to generate revenues, but I believe that the revenue will generate by a higher volume of activity will more than compensate for the reduced fees that we charge for those instruments. And then the last residual role, from my opinion, is the maintenance of quality standards, safety regulations, and fair competition. And I believe there's a lot that's happening in this area with NAFDAC, Standard Organization of Nigeria, Consumer Protection Council, and I believe there is also an antitrust legislation that is currently being discussed.
The formal presentations were followed by a highly engaging interactive session with the participants, in the course of which solutions were proffered to some of the impediments to national development.
Recently, your bank granted a loan of 4.something billion to the Ministry of Agriculture for the cassava industry, the cassava bread making. My question is, what do you have in place to ensure that that industry does not collapse like the previous ones, especially with respect to skills on the side of the people who are there?
Let me explain properly the situation. It wasn't a loan to the Federal Ministry of Agriculture. What happened was that the Federal Ministry of Agriculture gave BOI some funds to manage on their behalf. So we are like managing agents for the cassava bread fund. Okay, and on behalf of the Federal Ministry of Agriculture, we have disbursed the loans to the beneficiaries in line with the agreed criteria. Okay, just last week, the Agric Minister was in Ekere Ekiti to commission one of the plants. It's a cassava flour plant, which was financed by the Bank of Industry. It's very encouraging that we're able to do that locally. The equipment was fabricated locally, and everything was done within Nigeria. And there are a number of other beneficiaries like that. That was just the first. We have about 35 such beneficiaries spread across the country. And luckily, cassava is a product that is available, all over Nigeria.
Financing of small and middle industries. Why is it not possible for them to go into feasibility studies of those coming for the loans and set up an office, monitor the distribution and utilization of the loans to be able to recoup, the payback?
We are setting up a loan monitoring unit, and that will address that department. But in addition to that, we also in the process of appointing what we call business development support firms, that we handhold the SMEs right from the point of applying for the loans through to documentation, providing of security, disbursement, utilization, up all the way until the full recovery is achieved. Now, these business development support firms are in the process of being appointed, and we believe it will improve the performance of the SMEs.
You see a lot of mining industries, mine a lot of mineral resources all over dotted in this country. Why is it difficult to finance this sector of the industry, like well other, for example, the South African countries, in order to be able to, tap the resources available here?
At BOI, we are currently developing a product for what is called beneficiation. Beneficiation means processing of solid minerals. Now, we don't have, our balance sheet does not allow us to go into a large scale, because it's a multi-billion-dollar business. But from the research that we've done, we also know that there are a few solid minerals that are amenable to mini processing plants. They are not so large, a few hundreds of thousands of dollars. You can set up a mini processing plant. We're looking at barite, we're looking at gypsum. Granite is something that is already well established in Nigeria because there are a lot of queries that we've financed as a bank. But we must also realize the fact that in one of the solid minerals we've actually done very well, and that is limestone. Today, our production as a country has increased in the last 8 years from 2 million tons of cement
35.
to 39.9 million tons today, and we are the largest in Africa. That is very important. So for me, that gives us a lot of confidence that if we're able to do that, you can have a combination of initiatives and incentives that will help us develop the other solid minerals.
On issue of innovation, there are several research institutes, particularly the Raw Materials Research and Development Agency. Why is it not possible to go into some of these researches and try to adapt them, finance them, and get them into the production process, take it to the table for consumers, take them to the market?
Yes, it's true we have several research institutes, and they have a major role to play in Nigeria's quest for industrialization. In the last few weeks, I have had meetings. I met with the DG of Raw Material Research and Development Council. We are working together to see how can we, support one another. Last month, I was at FIRO, Federal Industrial Research Institute in Oshodi, and I was completely amazed by what FIRO has achieved for this country. They have about 350 scientists who are full-time. They have developed about 250 technologies. 50 of them are commercially proven. And there are companies that have gone to take their technologies from FIRO and they've turned into businesses that are running and very successful. And I met a few of them, who started from small scale, plantain chips kind of company to now is almost $1 billion turnover company, producing a lot of items. We are going to also partner with FIRO to ensure that, we can support them. One of the initiatives that we've agreed upon with FIRO is that we're going to have a capacity building program for Nigerian fabricators. If you see an equipment that is manufactured locally, it doesn't look very pretty.
Finishing.
But it's that finishing that is required. And we will develop our local fabricators to be able to do that. Because once you are able to finish properly, a lot of this equipment we can actually do locally. So it's a major area. In the next few weeks, certainly before the end of this month, I will also visit Enugu. I will visit Proda, because Proda is very similar to FIRO. So we need to encourage, I agree with you, we need to encourage the research institutes.
How do the monetary and fiscal policies in Nigeria affect our operations?
Yes. The purchasing power of average Nigerian is more important to us. The more money in circulation is more important to us. But to the government, they will tell you that inflation rate, too much money in circulation, this and that. So those policies, in terms of making business, in Nigeria's business, they are not good policies. Some are good, but mostly are good. The issue of control of interest rates, it is still through the monetary and fiscal policies that the issue of interest rate. If government could make interest rate for all manufacturing sector between 5 to 7% in the next 2 to 3 years, we will see wonders.
There is a serious skill gap in the country. What is NACCIMA doing to provide this gap for both the industries and the employees? Because the gaps are not, the skills is not with the employees, it's not with the industries. So what do you have in place? How do you want to bridge the gap? What do you want to do to provide this important thing?
I think the issue essentially is to do with relationship between academia and industry. You know, it used to happen in the past, but lately, you know, we've seen that with the declining, you know, industrial capacity in the country, you know, that has become a very, very diminishing factor. But the industrial ITF, Industrial Training Fund, is taking that up with the COS plan, the Student Industrial Work Experience. There is the ITF, Industrial Training facility, also for students from the universities to go into industry. But the issue is the industries are very few and far between. The relationship between industry and academia, that needs to be fostered. In Canada, for instance, we find out that industry and the universities work hand in hand, and they come up, you know, with projects which they jointly float and commercialize. We are getting to a point, you know, we are hoping that we get to that point, you know, much sooner than later in our country.
I want to thank you most sincerely on behalf of the participants for having time to be with us this afternoon. There is no doubt that your interaction with the participants is very enriching, and I'm sure it's going to help them to actually know what to write and what to recommend to Mr. President.
In recognition of their contributions to the institution and national development, the Director General of NIPSS presented gifts to the 3 distinguished resource persons.
Congratulate the team of experts who have discussed these issues this afternoon, and to convey the Director General's sincere gratitude to them. And we are quite sure that the contribution they have made will surely enrich the reports that we ultimately submit to the President of Nigeria. Thank you very much. We are most grateful. So, on behalf of the Director General, Professor Tijani Mohammed Bandi, I, the Director of Administration, wish to present this token of appreciation to you.
Thank you so much, sir.
We thank you so much for the contributions you make to the NIPSS and its family. Thank you very much.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Welcome back. In the last half hour, we brought you the brilliant presentations by the Managing Director of the Bank of Industry, the representative of MAN and NACCIMA, as well as subsequent interactive sessions with the participants at the National Institute for Policy and Strategic Studies, NIPSS, on the role of the private sector in national development. During the program, some new strategic and developmental ideas were initiated. In subsequent editions of the program, we shall keep you informed on the implementation of the recommendations. It is on this note that we'll call it a day on today's episode. See you next week when we bring you another interesting package of wealth creation through industrialization. It's good evening and have an enterprising week.